The 2-week pay period, invented in 1938 and still making us wait until daily pay, where everyone can access their money on demand. This is the future of pay. Learn more at dailypay.com. Transfer fee may apply.
This episode is brought to you by Fox One. Watch all 104 matches of the FIFA World Cup live in 4K for just $19.99 a month with 3 days free. Build your own multi-view, choose up to 3 streams, and follow player spotlights. Stay on top of every moment with live stats, highlights, and instant replays. The FIFA World Cup, streaming live on Fox One. Offers are subject to change. See fox.com for complete terms and conditions.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And I'm Jake Novak with you again on this Thursday evening in for Roger Stone. But Roger Stone will once again be joining us at the bottom of the hour, so please stay tuned for that. And it was quite the day in Chicago today, wasn't it? Yes and no. Not really. The big dedication of the, actually, of course, for the overwhelming majority of Americans, this was nothing. If I asked 10 people if they cared about the opening of the Obama Presidential Library, would I find 9? Would I find 9 who say yes? 8, 7? I mean, no, I probably wouldn't find anyone who really cared all that much. And of course, the proof will be in the pudding. There might be some people who say, "Oh yes, did they watch the coverage?" No. Are they actually going to go to this presidential library? No, probably not. But for perspective of understanding the political landscape in this country, I do think it's important. Not because I think this is something that really the opening of the library means nothing to no American. Really. And not because it's Obama. Let's be honest. Presidential libraries, and some of them are interesting, by the way, to visit. But the truth is, it's not on the bucket list of any Americans that I know, including a lot who are history buffs and things like that. But it's an important political test. Today was an important political temperature taking of America because people came to this event because, in case you haven't noticed, and I talked about this with Roger Stone last night, the Democrats are devoid of a national leader. Now, that isn't an emergency as far as the midterm elections go for them. It would help if they had one. But they're basically being run by a Politburo at the DNC right now. And sometimes that kind of a group can work well for something like a midterm election. But when you're running for president, you need a national figure that people can focus on. By the way, this is true of almost anything that you discuss in public affairs. The truth is, when you really think about it, very often it's policies and technologies and things like that that really change the world, not so much an individual person. There are quite a few individual people who are responsible for some of these things, and it's exciting when we can draw a direct line. Many of you who are listening to many of the stations that are airing the Stone Zone right now know that I've been hosting and putting together a special group of 1 minute and 30-second snippets called Freedom 250, The Decisions That Made America. And I could do more than 250, but they've been running. And of course, on Sunday nights on many of these stations, there's a live show where I go in more depth and more than the 30 seconds and 1 minute about 2 or 3 of those decisions. And we have guests and we talk about all those things. And it's a lot of fun. But it's very important in news and in politics to have a personality to work with. And this isn't just a case of psychology. You might have someone say, it would be best if we just had a group of experts who quietly made great decisions and everything wasn't all about a personality, and that way we wouldn't get so many narcissists running for office. And that I understand from a psychological point of view. But understand something, and I'm very loath to ever go against the wisdom of the founding fathers. I'm very loath to go against them because they understood something about leadership in this country. They understood that we needed to have a personality. We needed a human being that ultimately would take the biggest responsibilities. They wanted to have something like a king, but without the king's irrevocable powers. And that's how they came up with this idea of a president. Not a prime minister like they had in Britain, where they knew quietly a party could oust him. They wanted a president who was directly elected, as close to directly elected as the people. Yes, of course, there was an electoral college, but a president who was chosen by the people. I guess that's the best way to put it. Not elected by Congress, like a parliament, like a prime minister. And so you have the situation now where Barack Obama is the last Democrat leader of this country who has a popular following. Joe Biden, as I wrote the day he started running for president in 2019 officially, and all the way through his presidency, there is no such thing as a Joe Biden voter. No such thing. It was just anti-Trump voters. There were just anti-Trump voters. Nobody voted for Joe Biden, okay? I don't even think Jill Biden voted for Joe Biden. She voted for herself to be first lady. But so Barack Obama remains the last individual person who led the party. And as I, again, talked about with Roger Stone last night, he's not as popular as he once was. Today's big ceremony today, with a lot of older celebrities showing up and a lot of politicians showing up, notwithstanding, there's a large movement of radical leftist Democrats in this party who have no allegiance to Barack Obama and don't really like him all that much. But for some of the older, relatively older Democrats, they needed to show up to this thing because there's a scramble to be the personality leader, the personal leader of this party, and to be more specifically the Democrat frontrunner for president in 2028. And at least at this point, getting Barack Obama's support seems to be required, at least for now. It may not be a year from now if this leftist movement gets even more traction. But for now, you had people like Gavin Newsom there. You had a lot of the characters there who were hoping for President Obama's approval. Now, I could go into the speech with Barack Obama specifically. I am going to play one soundbite in a second. But something I want everyone to remember about his speeches, and this is really dovetails nicely into the point I'm going to make after you hear a soundbite from the speech. Barack Obama is just as divisive and demonizing as anybody has ever been in American politics. And for those of you who hate Donald Trump and think he's such a meanie, that includes Donald Trump. I can't remember any speech that Barack Obama has made as president or as a candidate for president where he isn't demonizing someone. He just does it with somewhat nicer and fancier rhetoric, somewhat. But he is a demonizer in chief even more than President Trump is, because President Trump takes pot shots. He goes on social media and uses nasty nicknames and things like that. And we can have another discussion one day. I would like to have a discussion with non-politicians about that. I don't want to hear from any politician about how President Trump could be nicer, because politicians are the last people who should be lecturing people about behavior and rhetoric in this country. It turned out one of the biggest Republican critics of President Trump's behavior, Ben Sasse, if you remember him, the senator, turned out to be kind of a crook. He got appointed to be the chancellor or the head of the University of Florida and was giving his friends super high salaries to teach online classes once a week, if that. But he was the paragon of virtue and morality and better behavior. That was his catchphrase. But here you have another aspect of Barack Obama's speech today, and one that was true in a lot of his other speeches, is he very often demonizes people by mapping out things that he says they did that he is guilty of. Now, listen to this. This is Barack Obama on the transfer of power. Here he is speaking today about that. Listen to this carefully.
A belief in the peaceful transfer of power after the people have spoken in fair and free elections, recognizing that in a large, complicated society like ours, no group or faction gets its way 100% of the time. And a belief that qualities of character, honesty, integrity, kindness, compassion.
So says the man, the peaceful transfer of power with honesty and compassion. So says the man who set up and bolstered the Russia collusion hoax against Donald Trump, which wasn't just a crime against Donald Trump. If it were just a crime against Donald Trump, that would be pretty bad. That would certainly be exactly the opposite of what Barack Obama is talking about with the peaceful transfer of power. So no, the Democrats didn't encourage a bunch of people to go storm the Capitol before Donald Trump was inaugurated in January of 2017, but they did something much worse. Not just to Donald Trump. Again, if it were just politician versus politician, whatever, it's a dirty business. And Donald Trump, believe me, he can take it. But the Russia collusion hoax tore this country apart. It tore some Republicans apart, too, because there were a lot of Republicans that I know, for example, who begrudgingly supported Donald Trump in 2016. And then when they fell for a little bit of the Russia collusion hoax, and these were people who had made their careers opposing Soviet Russia and continued to make their careers, I think, honorably, warning people about Vladimir Putin. And it was a little hard for them to not react emotionally to what looked like evidence for 5 seconds. Although, to me, it never looked legit to me. But okay. I've been duped before myself about other things. So, by the way, that is an important thing to do. One of the things that's really important, really, really smart, and probably mentally sound people will do in their lives is to admit that they can be duped sometimes and be fooled. If you don't think you can ever be fooled, then you're probably being fooled right now. But that said, this is Barack Obama. He does this all the time. And hypocrisy is part of politics, but still, this is the man who bolstered a very dangerous Russia collusion hoax, which damaged our intelligence community, damaged the relationships between people and families, damaged the very body politic of this country much more than January 6th, even if you believe that was some kind of an atrocity did. Much more. We're talking about a nuclear power enemy here in Russia. And they had a significant percentage of the country believing that Russia had manipulated our election, which is just ludicrous. Did you see some of the things that Russia tried to put on social media in 2016? Is laughably bad. And that's Barack Obama. And to me, this man is much more of a demonizer and divider than Donald Trump ever was. And his speech was filled with other hypocrisies. And again, hypocrisy is endemic to politics. You can't have politics without hypocrisy. It's part of the deal. But it doesn't mean I have to like it when I hear it. And the hypocrisy over, I mean, for Barack Obama to say the peaceful transfer of power. I mean, where does he get off? We all know that he manipulated this Russia collusion hoax. They got together after the election to try to figure out a way to undermine the Trump presidency. And if it destroyed the intelligence community, and if it ripped the country apart, who cares? Who cares? And they try to compare that to President Trump giving a speech on January 6th and false claims that he told people to go storm the Capitol, which he never did. And even the BBC had to admit they falsely edited the tape of it to make it sound like he did. Really, really just shameful stuff from this guy. And if you think I say that about all Democrats, you're wrong. I defy you to find speeches from Bill Clinton where he really spends a significant amount of time trashing America. He didn't do that. He was an uplifter in a lot of ways. Jimmy Carter was a downer. Didn't demonize America, but he tried to shame us a few times, maybe even a lot. So there are some other Democrats who've done it. But Barack Obama takes the cake. All right, when we come back, I want to talk about something really disturbing. I talked about it a little bit last night, this very disturbing congressional election and congressional candidate we have here in New York, and something that even a far leftist Democrat group said about her when we come back here on the Stone Zone.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And I'm Jake Novak filling in for Roger Stone. Just a few more minutes and we'll be joined by Roger Stone. As I've been raising the red flag over for the last several weeks, we have a congressional election here in New York, one particular one, where the 5-term Latino congressman representing mostly a Harlem-based district, Antonio Espaillat, is going up against a far leftist, and it's really, calling her a leftist is really a gift to her. She's basically a terrorist supporter. And if you think I'm stretching when I say that about Darelisa Chevalier, just listen to what we heard from a liberal New York political club. This is the Broadway Democrats. The Broadway Democrats came out with a statement today about this race. It's in the 13th district here in New York. And the Broadway Democrats are a far, far left group. In fact, they begin their statement by saying they're going to endorse Espaillat, but they also say right away, quote, "We usually support the younger, more progressive candidate, but we cannot do this in this race, and it's not even close." That is because at their own endorsement meeting, in other words, when they had the candidates come and try to talk them into endorsing them, Chevalier refused. She didn't defer. She refused to condemn Hamas and the October 7th attacks. She point blank refused to do it. And instead, she decided to turn it into another attack on Israel. Now, there was a report that came out and turned out to be true that on October 8th, which is notably before Israel responded to the October 7th attacks, and at October 8th, the very moment that more Israelis were being killed, raped, and tortured, there was a big rally here in New York to celebrate the Hamas attack. And Darelisa was there. Chevalier was there. Here's some audio from that. We just got some audio and video that had not been published yesterday until just now of what was being said at this rally. And she's right in the front row as this guy's saying this. Listen to this.
I wrote a little song to remind you, Choice Hotels get you more of the experiences you value. The Cambria Hotel's got it all. A rooftop bar, have a ball. Cocktails up here feel just right. Is Cambria amazing? All right. Bring a date, your team, or even your mom. Book direct at choicehotels.com. See you on the roof.
Adobe Firefly is the all-in-one creative studio with AI-powered image and video editing for today's creative process. Built for creators of every kind, Firefly helps you generate, edit, and experiment fast. Because the asks aren't getting smaller, the budgets aren't getting bigger, and the timelines, oh yeah, still tight. With all the best creative AI models in one place, Firefly brings your ideas to life. Unlock a better way to make with Adobe Firefly.
Hey, I like your new RAV4.
Thanks, yours too.
What does RAV stand for anyway?
To me, it's the Remarkably Advanced Vehicle.
Really? To me, it's the Runway Approved Vehicle for its amazing style.
What about Remarkably Adaptable Vehicle because of its versatile cargo space?
Or Really Admired Vehicle?
Oh, or Really Awesome Vehicle.
It really is the recreational activity vehicle. The stylish 2026 Toyota RAV4 Limited. What's your RAV4?
Halliday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Halliday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Halliday. Halliday, bring it on.
Less than 24 hours ago on the land, from the sea, and from the air, the people of the Gaza Strip broke out of the largest open-air prison.
Yeah, they attacked a bunch of people at a music concert and defenseless civilians in a kibbutz, and they're all cheering it like it's some kind of great military victory. The cowardly attack by monsters. And she's cheering so loud you can barely hear the rest of this guy's comments. The Broadway Democrats, I mean, this is a group that would vote for Stalin if they had the chance, has decided that this is a bridge too far for them. And they're gonna endorse Antonio Espaillat. This is just crazy. The Democrats are committing suicide here. They've gone so crazy that, especially in New York, and this is how Mamdani got elected, don't be fooled. Especially in New York, Democrats have decided that anyone who hates Trump the most and a radical Islamist terrorist must hate him more than anyone else who's worth their vote. Hopefully they'll wake up from this in this particular election. All right, Roger Stone joins us, and when we come back, I'm Jake Novak.
Suffering from dry, tired, irritated eyes? Don't let dry eyes win. Use Systane Pro. It hydrates, restores, and protects dry eyes for up to 12 hours. Systane Pro. Triple action dry eye relief.
Need a laptop that's built to perform and designed to last all day? Select Windows 11 PCs starting at $499.99 are now at Best Buy. Learn more at bestbuy.com. Best Buy. Imagine that.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And I'm Jake Novak in for Roger Stone, but Roger Stone joins us. And first, Roger, I got to give you credit. A couple of days ago when I was filling in for you and you called in, you were probably one of the first people on a national platform to note that there were all these contractors, many of them minority contractors, who have been stiffed by the Obama library. It's getting a little bit more attention now, but I guess you're not surprised that former President Obama didn't say anything about that today in his speech, are you?
Yeah, no, it's really extraordinary. Barack Obama seems to skate all of not only the massive crimes in which he was involved, but now this temple to diversity that they built in Chicago. How ironic that the people who are being hurt are minority-owned, tradesmen and the construction companies, the people who this was supposed to be empowering, the people who were supposed to help. But look, we now know, I saw Tulsi Gabbard today. I'm in Washington, as you know. So you're getting an on-the-ground report right from Washington, D.C. today on the Stone Zone. I saw Tulsi Gabbard today, the outgoing director of national intelligence. As you know, she has said definitively that there was a seditious conspiracy born in a White House meeting in 2016, chaired by Barack Obama himself, in which he and Joe Biden and Susan Rice, the national security advisor, and John Brennan, the CIA director and the Islamic covert, James Comey, the FBI director, and General James Clapper, then the director of national intelligence, cooked up the entire Russian collusion hoax. They called it specifically in that meeting, they referred to it as the Clinton plan. So we now know that there was a seditious conspiracy to remove a duly elected president. The country suffered through 3 years of it. I suffered through it particularly because along with President Trump himself and his family and General Michael Flynn, I was targeted in this investigation, not, Jake, because I did anything wrong, but in order to try to pressure me to testify falsely against President Donald Trump. They wanted me to say falsely that I had informed the president in advance about the WikiLeaks disclosures regarding Hillary Clinton. It was fake then, it's fake now, it's false then, it was false now, but that was their plan. And now, despite the fact that all of this is exposed, Barack Obama continues to be unscathed, but in fact, I think he should be prosecuted.
That was my lead this evening, Roger. And not only did I mention that, but I played a soundbite from Barack Obama where he admonished the crowd to respect the peaceful transfer of power. I mean, listen, we both know hypocrisy is endemic to politics. I get that. But I mean, there are levels here. I mean, this is an outrageous thing. The fact that, I mean, we're such a divided country that no one can say that it is now an objective fact that this guy put together not only a plot to hurt President Trump and people like you, but, you know, the harm the country suffered because of this Russia collusion hoax. You know, there were families torn apart by this. The intelligence community, which didn't have a lot of collateral left to lose, Roger, lost more over this, right? I mean, this was a real burning down of the house. And he had the audacity, to use his favorite word, he had the audacity to lecture us today about the peaceful transfer of power. That was my lead this evening.
Yeah, no, very, very wise on your part. Look, I met yesterday on Capitol Hill. One of the reasons I'm in Washington, I met with aides to Senator Chuck Grassley, chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, who told me shockingly that there are still substantially more documents that are classified that would document that there was indeed foreign interference in the 2016 election, but the foreign interference by a foreign country, but the foreign country was not trying to help Donald Trump. The foreign country in question, which you can guess about, starts with an R, was trying to actually help Hillary Clinton. I mean, she had already sold them 80% of the control of American uranium, as documented by the New York Times. So why not? The Russians, just like everyone else, I think, in the world stage, did not think that Donald Trump could be elected. They really didn't see the Trump phenomena coming. They didn't realize that by 2016, the American people, they were tired of the Clintons and the Bushes. They were tired of the Republicans and the Democrats. They were tired of Congress and the media, and they wanted something new. They wanted a reform president. They wanted an outsider, somebody untied to the mistakes of the past. And that man was Donald Trump. And they never took him seriously. They thought he was a caricature. They thought he was a cartoon figure. After all, the Clintons had all this extensive presidential campaign experience. Bill had run twice. Hillary was running for her second time. They both worked earlier in their career for George McGovern. They knew all about how this worked, and Trump was, let's face it, an amateur in the sense of he'd never run for president before. And therefore, they were shocked when he was elected. Shocked. And they had to come up with an excuse, and the excuse could not be that they just got outworked and outfoxed and outmaneuvered by Donald Trump. So they had to invent the Russian collusion hoax, and it threw the country into 3 years of turmoil. And the gutless, feckless, weak-kneed Republicans kept saying, oh, let Robert Mueller do his job. There was no job to do. There was no probable cause. There was no predicate under which they should have opened this investigation. The whole thing was, as we say in New York, a fugazi.
Roger, I was an executive producer at CNBC in 2016. I was running Larry Kudlow's show, and I was also the senior editorial columnist for CNBC. And I wrote an editorial at the end of May. They published it on the 1st of June, where I said, listen, Trump's going to win this. And I wrote specific reasons why. One of them was, and a big part of it was, he's running a better campaign. Yes, there's not as much fancy organization to it, and they've had a couple of different managers already and the whole thing, but it's a better campaign. And I realized a few months later, or maybe even years later, that was the massive sin that I committed. Not only did I predict he was going to win, and at that point they couldn't have thought I was right, so they didn't really hate me about that. But the fact that I was saying, look, this isn't just a fluke or a crazy thing, like you just said. This was actually a better campaign for a time when America is sick of career politicians and things like that. I wanted to ask you, just as someone who's run a lot of campaigns and been behind a lot of this kind of stuff, it's a rare chance to talk to someone with your expertise. If you had the same response I did when I saw the Hillary campaign in 2016, I was thinking to myself, she's actually married, at least on paper, to a guy who ran good campaigns. I mean, Bill Clinton liked campaigning and seemed to enjoy being among the people. He clearly enjoyed being among some people a little too much. That's another story. And here he had his wife, not only clearly not comfortable doing that, but remember that famous picture of her at the Chipotle when they were taking a break across the country and she didn't want to be recognized and she's behind the dark glasses? I mean, if that had been Bill, he would have been behind the counter taking selfies with all the workers, loving every minute of it. I mean, were you as shocked as I was by the fact that she clearly didn't take any lessons from a guy who was pretty good at it, who was at least in name her husband?
Well, first of all, let's point out that Bill Clinton never got 50% plus percent of the vote in any of his presidential campaigns.
But he got a lot of pussy.
And he was able to cobble together a plurality of the vote only because Ross Perot ran 2 times, siphoning votes from Republicans. So, so much for his brilliant political prowess. Richard Nixon, who was an introvert, and in some ways not the greatest candidate of all time, he still won the greatest landslide in American political history. So the difference, though, is that Bill let's face it, he was a lovable rogue. He was a charming rogue. Even though I didn't like his politics, I have to admit there was something about him I found entertaining and endearing. Whereas it's very clear that Hillary Clinton did not like people. Yeah. If you read my book, The Clintons' War on Women, it's a famous White House memo that goes out when she's first lady, goes out to the entire White House staff. It says, if you encounter the first lady in the hallways or within the old executive office building, you are not to ever look her in the eye, nor are you to address her unless she addresses you. This is someone who doesn't like people. And that is a crucial element of being a decent candidate. I mean, you have to have some personal appeal.
And it's apparently contagious. There was a similar memo for Kamala Harris when she was Attorney General. Remember when she walked into the office, you weren't supposed to look her in the eye? Same deal. Incredible.
No, they have no people skills. Bill had them. She had none of them. She was the ice queen. And you remember the very famous quote where she's yelling at her own people and says, you guys need to straighten this campaign out or we're all going to hang. Well, she lost, but nobody's hung yet, even though that is the penalty for seditious treason.
We talked yesterday about how there is no real leader yet for the Democratic Party. And, it always grinds my gears to call it Democratic Party because they ought to try democracy once in a while. They haven't in quite some time. They're such an anti-democratic institution. I mean, they just don't seem to believe in the vote, not just for the national elections, but for their own primaries. But that aside, getting back to this Obama Library dedication today, a lot of people were there hoping to get his approval to be the heir apparent. Gavin Newsom was there. A bunch of other people who would love to have his endorsement. Now, we also talked last night about how the Obama endorsement in the Democrat Party is not as valuable as it was a couple of years ago because the far leftists who don't really like him are getting more power every day. That said, though, they were there to kiss the ring. They weren't there to go see the Cubs game after the dedication. They certainly weren't there to do anything at the library. Do you think Obama is going to at least try to play kingmaker for 2028?
Well, he certainly played kingmaker in 2024. Look, Joe Biden was forced out of the race. He did not want to go. I actually believe, based on some of my Democrat sources, that on the Sunday that he quote unquote withdrew, he was heavily sedated. Look at that letter they released at about 4:00. It's not on White House stationery. That doesn't even look like his signature. So I don't think he had any intention of withdrawing from the race. I think the Obamas, combined with Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, they forced him out of the race against his will. Now, he wasn't up to running for re-election. That's a separate question. But isn't it strange that the party that now is parading the streets screaming, no kings, nominated a candidate for president that no Democrat primary voter, no Democrat caucus voter, no Democrat voter anywhere ever actually voted for? She was anointed as a queen and as the nominee of their party. So don't lecture us about democracy, small d. There is no democracy in your party.
I'll go even further. The Democrats haven't had a truly open presidential primary since 2008. Now, I'll give them a pass on 2012 because they had an incumbent president. But in 2016, they rigged it for Hillary against Bernie. In 2020, Joe Biden fails miserably in the first two contests, and then they get Jim Clyburn to come out and say basically blacks won't vote for anybody else but Joe Biden, and they cleared the field for him. 2024, they replace him with, it's been a really long time since they've had an open primary. Let me play a little bit of a hypothetical with you, but I don't think it's much of a stretch. If the Democrats don't take the House and don't take the Senate, in other words, they completely lose these midterms, will they be forced into an actual real open primary by an insurgent group that will point to the existing DNC Politburo and say, you guys got to go?
They might, but the problem is that the rank and file constituency of the party is no longer in any way centrist. The words moderate Democrat, that's an oxymoron. That literally no longer exists. So their party is dominated by Marxists, socialists, so-called progressives.
McGovern 72.
McGovern 72 is one of my colleagues here. Doug Davenport, the well-known political analyst who I was talking about only last night.
You did.
points out. So I don't think their party can be saved. I don't think they're capable of producing a moderate centrist nominee. And look at the field. I mean, you got J.B. Pritzker. I mean, please. I met this guy on the corner of 32nd, 33rd, and 34th Street. I mean, when he sits around the house, he sits around the house, if you know what I mean.
To quote the great Al Yankovic, the weird Al Yankovic, yes.
I mean, he's so fat, he's got his own zip code.
Yeah, but, he's never going to get nominated. And neither will Josh Shapiro. I mean, any of the, and I'll call them ethnically Jewish because I don't know how actively Jewish. And by the way, J.B. Pritzker's older sister was a classmate of my mother's in Chicago. She knows the family well. I don't know how actively Jewish these people are, but the fact is, if they think that the Democratic Party is going to, and the rank and file Democrat primary voter is going to vote for any Jewish candidate for president, I mean, there's a fool and their money are soon parted. Where can we get in on getting JB's money, just like Bloomberg's money back in 2020? Remember, I mean, that's easy money for anyone who wants to take it because there's no results possible. I don't think.
This is precisely how they got Tim Walz for vice president. I think Kamala Harris's original intention was to take little Josh Shapiro.
Yeah.
And then Barack Obama told her, no, that was unacceptable, that if he did that, given the Muslim American dominance in the Democrat Party in Minnesota and Michigan, they had to take Tim Walz or somebody other than Josh Shapiro, that a Jewish candidate would be a turnoff to voters in that state. So I don't think they appropriately vetted Walz, because if they had, they would have known that he was lying about his military service. He was lying about it being a football coach. He lied about quite a bit. I do know for a fact they tried to get the senator the governor of Tennessee, the governor of North Carolina. Both of them turned it down because they correctly saw it as a one-way ticket to defeat. And that's how they got stuck with Tim Walz, providing the most radical ticket they've ever had.
We had to take a quick break, but when we come back, Roger, we have like a couple minutes left. I'd love to ask you a specific question about something you're an expert on, and that's the 1972 election, because you alluded to it before, but I have a specific question for you about that when we come back on the Stone Zone. I'm Jake Novak in for Roger Stone, but Roger's here, and we'll be right back with him after this break.
Starting a business can seem like a daunting task, unless you have a partner like Shopify. They have the tools you need to start and grow your business. From designing a website to marketing to selling and beyond, Shopify can help with everything you need. There's a reason millions of companies like Mattel, Heinz, and Allbirds continue to trust and use them. With Shopify on your side, turn your big business idea into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And Roger Stone is with us. I'm Jake Novak, filling in the chair for Roger. Roger's on the phone with us. And Roger, I wanted to spend the last couple of minutes asking you something specifically about 1972 and that presidential election. You know, as you noted earlier, it was the biggest landslide in history. Richard Nixon winning 49 out of 50 states, even by larger margins than Ronald Reagan did in 84. But the thing is, a lot of people point to the moment of the Democrat National Convention that year. It was in Miami. It ran crazy over time. I think McGovern gave his acceptance speech at like 2 a.m. Eastern time or something like that. And as bad as that was, what was even worse is that people in America watched it and it just looked like a conga line of freaks. All of the things that we see now in the Democrat Party, they tried him out for size. They gave him a little bit of an airing at that 72 convention. And the Democrats saw that and learned from it. Why don't they learn from it now? It can't just be, Roger, because the elections are ostensibly closer. You know, there's a different paradigm as far as that's concerned. Why don't they learn today like they learned from 72, in your opinion?
Well, as you remember, in 1972, we successfully labeled the Democrat Party as a party of acid, amnesty, and abortion.
Yep.
And so it is true. It has been a radical left party since the McGovern takeover. That's kind of the beginning of the downfall of the old Democrat Party. Because in 1968, I had dinner tonight with Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s daughter-in-law, who's a brilliant woman and a good friend. But this idea that Bobby Kennedy would have been nominated in 1968 had he not been assassinated is unfortunately untrue, or that he would have been elected in a general election. Here's my point. John F. Kennedy carried every deep state south, Louisiana, Mississippi, Georgia, and so on. Robert Kennedy could carry none of those. And at the 68 convention is the last convention controlled by sane people, Mayor Richard Daley, Lyndon Johnson, and so on. After that, the McGovern wing of the party takes over that party, and it's really never come back. Clinton briefly kind of bridged that gap, but only briefly. And today they're not capable of producing a moderate nominee. Who are their candidates? Gavin Newsom. This guy is 3 steps ahead of the posse when it comes to massive corruption going on, even as we speak. So I'm still very optimistic, not only about the midterms, but also about the next presidential election.
Yeah, I mean, even MS Now asked Newsom at the Obama thing today about that corruption stuff. That tells you how bad trouble he's in. Roger, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody, enjoy your evening.
Thanks for listening to The Stone Zone with Roger Stone. You can hear The Stone Zone with Roger Stone weeknights at 8 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?